You ever have one of those nights where you look back and think, that's when my whole life turned sideways? Except it's not funny or dramatic, it's just real. My wife said no to the HOA, and honest to God, I thought that was the end of it. Turns out it was just the opening shot. Next thing I know, 3 so-called officers show up at our house. No warrant, no ID, nothing but attitude and cheap uniforms. Their boots didn't even match. That's what stuck with me, the boots. They weren't here to protect anyone. They were here to send a message. Fall in line or else. You know what I mean. That's when I realized we weren't up against some overdue fee. We were up against something bigger, something that thrived on fear and power games. And I'm not proud to admit it, but for a split second, I froze. If you've ever had strangers pounding on your door at night demanding to take your spouse away, you know what I mean. The pounding started at 7:30 sharp that Thursday. I was elbows deep in grease fixing my boat engine in the garage when Rachel called my name, the kind of call where you already know you're in trouble. By the time I wiped my hands and made it to the living room, she was glued to the window, peeking through the blinds at 3 men on our porch. They looked like cops at first glance, badges flashing under the porch light, uniforms pressed. But something felt off right away. Rachel's voice was low, scared. They said they're here about me refusing to join the HOA. Which made no sense. There's no law anywhere requiring you to join an HOA. But these guys acted like they ran the world. The leader was this tall guy with a walrus mustache, maybe mid-40s, kept fiddling with his belt like he had something to hide. When I looked closer through the peephole, I saw their county patch didn't even match our county name. At that point, I told Rachel to stand back and open the door. Right away, mustache guy puffs up and says my wife violated community safety codes by refusing HOA membership, and that it's a misdemeanor requiring immediate detention. He was flanked by 2 others, one clutching handcuffs, the other with his hand on a radio. They looked so confident for a second I questioned my own sanity. Did we miss a memo? But Rachel stepped up and with more backbone than I felt asked to see their warrant or any official document. Mustache guy just stared at her like he wasn't used to people pushing back, then mumbled something about community safety violations not requiring traditional warrants. He pulls out a citation for $850 and says she has a court date next Saturday. I'm no lawyer, but I know courts don't operate on Saturdays. Still, I held my tongue trying to figure out what their angle was. The guy with the handcuffs steps forward, says Rachel has to come with them for processing at the community safety facility. His badge read Pubic Safety, which would be hilarious if it wasn't so damn creepy. Their uniforms crackled like cheap Halloween costumes, and the radio just hissed static, no real police talk. I pulled out my phone, told them I was calling the real police. All 3 went pale. Suddenly, mustache guy says not to involve law enforcement, it'll make things worse. He's sweating now, desperate for us to cooperate quietly. That's when I started recording, holding my phone low. Across the street, Mrs. Patterson, who's lived there 20 years, is peeking out, eyebrows raised. Even she knew HOAs don't get to play police. As the handcuffed guy moved closer, Rachel backed up and demanded to know which law gave them arrest powers. All 3 just stood there blinking before the leader stammered about some new community safety legislation. Couldn't name a law, couldn't show a document, just more threats. I kept filming, capturing their fake badges and nervous glances. Rachel tells them flat out, I'm not going anywhere unless you bring real police, and points out their uniforms and spelling errors. That sends them into a panic. They start talking over each other, babbling about deadlines and processing. So I said loud so Mrs. Patterson could hear, I'm calling 911 right now. That's when their act collapsed. They bolted, muttering about returning with documentation, their getaway car. Just a regular old SUV with stick-on decals, not even a real patrol car. Mrs. Patterson steps outside asking if we're all right. I just nodded, feeling a mix of rage and relief. After they left, we sat in silence, replaying everything on my phone. It was so obvious. Costume uniforms, toy, handcuffs, fake badges. We'd been targeted by a fraud, not law enforcement. We started digging online, and sure enough, not a single HOA in the country has the power to arrest or fine you like that. Still, I figured it was over. Next morning, I step outside to get the paper, and our yard is plastered with fake legal notices taped to the mailbox windshield fence, even the front door, all with official headers and threats of fines. Rachel barely slept, kept checking the door. The main notice accused her of non-compliant landscaping and unauthorized paint colors, all made up with fines that magically totaled $850. I started digging into the documents. No case numbers, no court info, the contact number, some random guy's voicemail, the court dates were weekends. Rachel was snapping photos for evidence pointing out that courts don't run on Saturdays. But what made my skin crawl was a letter referencing a private joke Rachel made on our porch. Suddenly it hit me someone had been watching us. That afternoon, Mrs. Rodriguez from across the street came over holding a pile of identical citations hers totaled over $1,000. She was terrified. I assured her it was all fake, but she wasn't convinced. As we talked, the black SUV pulled up again at the end of the street, mustache guy behind the wheel just watching. Rachel took photos zoomed in to show the decals were just stickers. Later, reviewing our security camera, I saw Rick the fake cop slinking around at 3:15 a.m. plastering houses with citations photographing each one. It was an organized campaign. I called the county clerk to scribe the documents and she said, "That's all fraudulent. HOAs can't issue legal penalties. Only city code enforcement can do that." She told us to call the real police. Neighbors started comparing notes. Mrs. Patterson got a call from someone pretending to be a cop, fishing for info about our schedules. She hung up when he couldn't even provide a badge number. By evening, the SUV was parked directly across from us again. I finally walked toward it, but the driver sped off. Rachel whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe we don't belong here." That stung worse than the threats. Worse. Then it escalated. Someone delivered fake police reports to Rachel's office trying to get her fired. Her boss thankfully saw through it. One of her colleagues, Jennifer, had seen similar scams before and pointed out all the red flags. That night, Martha Green, the HOA president, called an emergency safety meeting at the community center. The place was packed. Martha starts her presentation flashing photos of our house and evidence of violations. She even showed pictures from the fake arrest attempt, pretending it was real. That's when Dennis Williams, a retired paralegal, stood up and calmly destroyed every argument. He explained the law said HOAs can't arrest anyone or issue citations, period. Martha got defensive, made up stories about special enforcement powers. But when Dennis asked for the law, she claimed it was confidential. Here's the twist during a break. Dennis tells Rachel her late aunt had complained about lease violations by the HOA. He says, "Check the paperwork she left you." Suddenly there's a new thread to pull. When the meeting resumes, Rick struts in, still wearing the fake uniform, and tries to intimidate Dennis. I called 911 right in front of everyone. Rick backed away and real police arrived. This time no one was fooled. Police told the whole room HOAs have zero arrest powers. Rick was arrested for impersonating an officer. Martha's credibility was shot. People started demanding answers, sharing their own stories of harassment. Dennis quietly told us to look for old lease agreements in Rachel's aunt's papers. We spent the weekend buried in boxes, manila folders, binders, yellowing contracts. What we found changed everything. The entire neighborhood sat on land leased from Rachel's family. The original contract said the HOA could be evicted if they harassed residents or stopped paying rent. And guess what? No payments had been made in 3 years. Rachel's aunt had been ignored, her warnings dismissed. Now all the power was in our hands. We called a real estate attorney. She just shook her head at the mess. She said Rachel could demand back payments over $40,000 and shut the HOA down if they didn't comply. We served Martha with legal notice, and she panicked. At the emergency HOA meeting, the truth spilled out. Rachel explained the lease, the violations, the fraud. Dennis made it crystal clear HOA authority comes from property owners, not the other way around. The community turned. Real police showed up again with a warrant this time. Martha was arrested for conspiracy and fraud. The rest of the board quit. Dennis volunteered to help form a new transparent committee. Rachel refunded all the fraudulent fines, voided every fake citation, and the whole mood shifted from fear to hope. When the dust settled, Rick's headquarters turned out to be his garage stuffed with fake badges and uniforms. The scam stretched across 3 counties. The DA praised us for not backing down and made it a teaching case for other HOAs. Martha lost everything, her office, her career, her power. Rick's looking at a decade in prison. Now our neighborhood actually feels like a community. Real board meetings, public records, fair elections. No more secrets, no more threats. Rachel's the landowner, but she uses her authority to protect everyone's rights, not just her own. Justice wasn't just a headline here. It was money back in people's pockets, dignity restored. At our first real celebration, Rachel signed the new lease and charter in front of everyone. The new sign says Green Greenwood Community, where neighbors come first. It's not loud, but it says everything. Maybe the real lesson here isn't about who has the most power. It's about what happens when people refuse to be bullied and choose to stand together. So would you have given them a second chance or burned it all down? Let me know in the comments. Hit like if this hit home, and if you've got a story about justice, I want to hear it. Until next time, stay loud, stay kind, and remember, read every sign twice.